Hello, this is Deadpan Sam, and I'm not reviewing films tonight. I'm going to be reviewing music. And for those of you out there who don't know me, which is kind of 99.9% of you, you won't know that I actually used to be a musician and a songwriter. That was my sort of chosen career for quite some time. And so I'm actually I know much more about music and the technique of making music than I do about films, far more. And the theme I wanted to talk about wasn't really any specific song or any specific type of music. It was the idea that the majority of artists, certainly in pop music, do their best work in the first few years of their career and then go to hell. And this is a consistent theme from the Beach Boys through to the Rolling Stones, through to Madonna, and the people who say that, through Roxy music, people who say that pop stars continually reinvent themselves. I don't believe they do. I think it's the law of diminishing returns. The longer the career goes on, the worse it gets, and we've seen that with people who won't stop. I mean, why don't the Rolling Stones stop? Why doesn't Madonna stop? Why don't the Beach Boys stop? Just give up. You've done your best work. It's done. And speaking of the Beach Boys, I'm going to start with the Beach Boys because the Beach Boys are probably my favourite all-time pop group. Brian Wilson, to me, was the only genius ever to work in pop music. I like the Beach Boys more than the Beatles. I thought songs like God Only Knows, Good Vibrations, The Warmth of the Sun were fantastic, and I used to long to be able to write songs like that from the age of 7 onwards, from the first time I heard them. And but to a certain extent, by 1966, so that's between late 62 and 66, the Beach Boys had done it. They produced very little of any worth after Good Vibrations. The odd song stands out. Wild Honey and Friends are quite good songs. Do It Again is quite a good song. Sail on Sailor is quite a good song. But that's about it. Brian Wilson didn't do anything really that was much good after Good Vibrations. But what he did in that concentrated period was fantastic. That kind of body of work is absolutely unmatched in the history of pop music. The Who. Now look at The Who. The Who started off Shepherd's Bush, Cockney Boys, although Pete Townsend, I suspect, was quite posh. Always struck me as being quite a middle-class lad. And again, the early stuff, Substitute, My Generation, the introduction to My Generation. Anyone can play it on the guitar, but it's just the sheer aggression and amphetamine force of the song is brilliant. I Can See for Miles, one of the first singles I ever bought, just brilliant. And then from the time of about Who's Next, which was I think 1970, 1971, it all seemed to go downhill. It got bloated, it got boring. They had a single out called Joined Together, I think, with the band in the early 70s. And from then on, they were just trying to recapture that old magic, but they were no more. They were bloated pop stars. There was nothing there. Nothing of any worth has been produced by The Who since 1971. The same, I would argue, goes for the Rolling Stones. Now, the Rolling Stones in the 60s were producing just music that was fantastic. I mean, if you think back of those singles, The Last Time, Jumpin' Jack Flash, just some of the most fantastic singles. And then suddenly, in about 1970, they all become junkies and big stars. They go to France to record Exile on Main Street, which is a really boring record with only one decent song on it. And, again, it's gone. The magic's gone. And the Rolling Stones, since 1970, have produced absolutely nothing of any worth. Neither of The Who, and certainly neither of the Beach Boys. An artist of which I'm fonder is Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa, again, his early period from, say, Freak Out to the time he disbanded the first incarnation of the Mothers of Invention, some of the most brilliant music ever committed to record. Very geeky, but then being a geek I would like it. We're Only in It for the Money, Absolutely Free, Uncle Me, Weasels Rip My Flesh, Burnt Weenie Sandwich, all those records, absolutely fantastic. You know, I won't go into detail, but songs like Oh No, followed by the Orange County Lumber Truck, sheer genius. Then suddenly, as if by magic, 1970 comes along, and he died in 1992 or 93, I think it was 93, and he produced nothing after that which touched his early work, just nothing. And I'm going to finish on on Madonna, a more sort of recent pop star, if you like. And Madonna, in her early days, I thought really produced some good material. I mean, Holiday was a brilliant song, you know, Like a Virgin. But this is all 1984, and in the 80s, I think Madonna was 1980s best thing, more so than Michael Jackson. And there were some fantastic songs. Crazy for You, which I thought was one of the most underrated songs she did. I think it was from a film about wrestling, I'm not sure, but so some brilliant chord changes in the chorus. And but after that, what have we got? You know, the odd song which is okay, like Music is okay, although we're talk about a rip-off of Trans Europe Express. You know, it's basically Madonna didn't produce anything of any artistic worth. Really, I think Bedtime Stories, and my favourite song of hers, which is Inside of Me, which is on Bedtime Stories. After that, forget it. She's and her really recent stuff has been absolutely appalling, and you know, really give it up. You know, it's just not worth it. Now, there's lots of other artists I could mention who really sort of had their day and should give up. You know, there's enough of them around, and they keep trotting on, producing stuff which they really shouldn't. I mean, look at Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder, brilliant in the 60s, churned out some of the best records known to mankind in the early 70s. Inner Visions, Talking Book, and then he produces songs in the Key of Life, which I actually didn't like. I thought it was sort of bloated, overrun piece. There are just a couple of good songs. And then since then, I mean, Schlockmeister Stevie, remember, is the man who inflicted I Just Called to Say I Love You on us, which is a horrible song. Even the bass line stinks. And so he hasn't produced anything of any worth ever since. And the list goes on, but Tamla Motown Records didn't produce anything worthwhile after 1970. Well, possibly Love Hangover, but and it's those early years, maybe something to do with musicians and the way they work, but in their early years they produce their best work, and then everything goes to shit. And even the Beatles, if anybody can name me, the only band I can think of offhand who were consistent throughout their whole career was Steely Dan. Steely Dan, first album 1972, Can't Buy a Thrill. Last album 1980, Gaucho, is a consistent body of work, and it's actually difficult for me to choose any of their albums and say that was the best one. Gaucho was just as good as Can't Buy a Thrill. They then go off the grid for 20 years really, and then they come back, they've reformed, and they make terrible records, absolute shockers. I mean, just don't listen to them, don't buy them, don't go anywhere near them. You know, they're to be feared rather than to be listened to. They're absolutely horrible. And I don't know what happens. Maybe these guys need to pay their mortgage, or maybe they need to do something else. But it just seems that the first 3-4 years of any pop musician's career are the best years, and then after that they're just repeating themselves, or they're getting worse, or what they're producing is an ever diluted version of what they did before. So anyway, that's my rant on the early years of musicians, and I'm going to sign off now. This is Deadpan Sam saying good night. I'm going to stop producing clips for the time being, and but I'll be back soon, and who knows what I'll be covering next. I'm sure the multitudes out there can't wait to find out. So good night. May your God go with you.